恭敬大德圣听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法论，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊真无生。Well, the Sangha regret virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Present the wonderful Dhamma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and birth and death, and quickly realize none but.
Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huai. Oh, that's not the way we start, is it? Where am I? Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Tassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo Sadando Suchedoye Olahudi Samyao Sanputoshe. Wu Shang Shen Shen Wei Miao Fa Bai Qian Wan Jue Nan Zhao Yu Wo Jin Jian Wan De Shou Chi Yuan Jie Ru Lai Chen Shi Yi. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons, but now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. It is September 28th. We are well into Libra here in the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, Berkeley, California. And tonight we are going to continue our investigation of the Flower Garland Sutra, known as the Huayan and if you'd like to get your copy, we're going to do the first few lines of that, the title in Chinese, and what's happening here? I see. We're stuck. Yeah, get that off the edge, please. You got it? There you go. Nice, thank you. We're going to invoke spiritual presence by chanting this name, the name of the sutra, and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who bring the sutra to us. We do it in Chinese, and we've been experimenting with a variety of containers for that. This is an invocation, so you invoke, you request, you invite. So that's what we're doing in spirit, is we're saying, please come, bless this assembly with your presence. And there's every sense that if we're sincere, they will come. That's the melody. You want to put your palms together if you care to do so. And let's do it. Namo Da Fang Guang Hu is really good. I like the way that sounds a lot. We started originally with the standard, which has its virtues for sure. But we've gone to mandolin, to we did a rattle at one point, to guitar, to banjo. Banjo works especially when it's a gourd banjo, a fretless gourd banjo. Sounds very primitive, very elemental. So here we are, and my goodness, it's chilly tonight outside here in Berkeley. The autumn has come, and the thing about autumn is certainly that winter is on the way, and winter is a time of returning to the roots. The energy, the sap, all goes down to the roots, and it's very interesting. I read that there's a chemical that comes up from the tree that tells the leaves to actually separate. It's not that they just kind of dry up, or it's not that there is a moment when the tree itself signals to its leaves, if they're deciduous trees, it's time to fall. And all you have is bare branches. And you know that it's a time to pull back to the Chan tradition has a great saying that summer is when we learn, when we study, when we extend and increase our knowledge and make connections with different languages, different ideas, different cultures, different patterns. So summer is study, but winter is the time for Chan. Winter's the time when we come back and hold that fixed gaze on the caravan, the ocean that is the mind. So we're not there yet. This is autumn. We're just now into autumn, but you can sense it. I was at my desk up on the second floor after lunch on Wednesday, and I heard this sound, and I was immediately taken back to being 7 years old in northwestern Ohio, and hearing that sound and looking up and seeing this V in the sky of maybe 25 or 30 Canada geese heading south. And I didn't know, we didn't see Canada geese in Toledo every day, but they had been in the forests, they'd been in the creeks, they'd been in the ponds, in the rivers, and at a certain signal, they find each other, they rise up and head south to warmer temperatures, where they went to California, certainly not Northern California anymore, because there they were in Berkeley, same song. I don't know if it's not the same birds, but they were in that V. And when I heard it, it was like, hey, autumn. That sound is very evocative of the time when the sap goes down and the trees plan for next spring's buds, right? So that's where we are. And it's a wonderful time to investigate the Buddha's wisdom as found in these texts. And after we look at the text tonight, I'm going to continue with my reporting, you could say, on the trip that a delegation from our association just took to China. Particularly, we're going to talk about the last week of the trip, where some of us had to come back. Jin Chuan, Jin Wei Shi both came back to start the school year, but the rest of us went on to Dunhuang, to the stone caves, the Mogao caves, on an oasis on the Silk Road. And we also traveled to another place in Gansu called Tianshui, where there's Mai Jishan, heap of wheat, the mountain of collected wheat, and the most astonishing vertical cliff carving, Buddha carving, and then to White Horse Temple, where Buddhism first arrived in China, and then to Dragon Gate, Longman. Anybody see 龙门客栈那片电影？有没有看过？没有人？有了，有。老了，你这个老人呢，跟我一样老了。老人要年纪大才能记得。There was one of the very, very, very first introductions to martial arts in the cinematic world was a movie called Dragon Gate Inn and 龙门客栈. And it's one of the incredible moments in that film where because there's always a beaten down bar, and so they're in the bar, and it's a cafe bar shop, and these guys are sitting there and comparing who's bad, who's badder, who's really bad, and then flies are buzzing by. One guy grabs the chopsticks and goes, hands him the fly. And it was, oh, he's bad. He's really bad. Catch a fly in your chopsticks, right? Without looking. Grab it. So, Longmen Kejan. Anyway, we were at Longmen. I didn't see the fly or the bad guy, but we were at Dragon Gate. And Longmen Kejan is Longmen Shiku. Is Shiku, one of the finest collections of Buddha image carving in the world. And it's, again, it's one of those bittersweet, because a lot of the images, of which there are 10,000, have been defaced, not only by people being vandals, but by the weather over the years. So, as we talk about these stone caves, and I'm just previewing because we're going right to our text. We talk about Dunhuang, the Mogao Caves. We talk about Maijishan, and we talk about Dragon Gate, Longmen. We also visited something very, very special that it's maybe because we've been there 3 times in the last 4 years, it's become less special, but it hasn't. Familiarity does not diminish the wonder of Fei Lai Feng. Fei Lai Feng is the mountain that flew in here, the mountain that flew here. And it's the peak, the mountain peak that flew in. It's right across the road from Lingyan Monastery in Hangzhou, one of the oldest and most important monasteries in the southeast of China. And one of the reasons why it kind of doesn't have the same status as the other famous mountains and caves, art caves, is because it's so close. You can walk right up and just walk through the art that has been collected there for 1,000 years. It's so close. It's a national treasure. It's also a UNESCO preserved heritage site. But it's I have some photos from there, and I'll tell you now, Dunhuang is a bit of a tease. Why is it a tease? It's because you're not allowed to photograph inside the art. You have to go see it with your own eyes and then go buy the materials they prepare, because your camera cannot. They have 6,000 visitors a day, 6,000 people walk through, and if every one of those people just took one iPhoto, it would degrade the paintings. They'd be gone for the next generation. So they're doing a good job of preserving them. So I'm going to tease you. I'm not trying to tease. I'm saying that you can see the outside, you can hear the stories, but you have to use this contemplator to imagine what it's like. But with the help of multimedia that I'm going to share with you tonight, we do a pretty good job of imagining. Okay, that's ahead. That's coming up. Please open your text here in front of you, if you will. And welcome back to Van. Glad to see you here. Welcome back. Welcome back to Winston, all the way from Shanghai. Welcome back. Old friends, the autumn wind brings everybody back, right? It's great. We're on page 90 and 91. 90, 91. We're also happy that our friends in Australia are helping bring this lecture to listeners in China. Last week we had 59 people listening on YouTube, which is outside of China. And in China, how many last week was it, Jerry? Was it like 30? Not China. 30, yeah. So, pretty good. Pretty good. Especially when it's the everybody's preparing for the 60th anniversary, 70th anniversary. Let's start with the third paragraph. That's 众生惑见, right? Living beings' delusions. All right, I'll give you a line, you give it back. 众生惑见恒随福，无始愁林未除减，与之共具心业生心病生。常向机系不断绝。Okay, have to take a trip down to the romanization to know what those characters are. Let's start with living beings. Read it together. Here we go. Living beings' delusions and views constantly bind them up, like dense thickets from time without beginning, never cutting free. Bound up with intent, arise with thoughts, tied up beings eternally, never ending. All right, that's grammatically that sentence has trouble. But let me tell you where we're at. We're in the 9th stage, instructions for Bodhisattva. We've finished the prose part where it's laid out in grammar lines. We've come to the repeated verse part where it's said one more time, but with meter. Bum, bum, ba, bum, bum, ba, 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 bum, ba, 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 bum. So that's where we are. What's going on? The Bodhisattva is reviewing what he's learned here. He's been studying people. And notice where it says, living beings' delusions and views constantly bind them up. That them could easily be changed out for us. Instead of them, they're all bound up. It's like we are all, right? We, living beings, delusions and views, constantly tie us up. We're always tripping over our thoughts, constantly. Our opinions, our ideas, our delusions, our denials, right? So that's what our Bodhisattva is looking at, is what? What makes a living being a living being? Why do we hurt? Why when you step into Walgreens is the analgesic, the pain relieving counter so long? There's so many kinds of headache medicine, right? It's because we need it. It wouldn't be there if it didn't sell, and it wouldn't sell if we were headache free, right? So the Bodhisattva says, yeah, I know that stuff. I am a living being. I'm reading your pulse accurately because it's my story. So I need ways to get past that pain, to get to its roots and uproot it, untangle it. What's it like? Our verse gives us a picture. It's called dense thickets, 丛林 Okay, funny image, right? But I've got a perfect analogy, perfect picture for you to see it with your eyes. Right outside the perimeter of our building, if that wall wasn't there, I'd be pointing at it. It's like 12 feet from Winston's right shoulder there, right outside. There is what I grew up calling a hedge, right? It's a hedge. What is it? Bushes. And it's funny that the bushes, they're about waist high. They've been here since the building was built, I'm sure. They were planted because it's nice to see a row of green alongside your structure, alongside your building. So those hedges have been there, and not only that, they're there on the Bancroft side, on this street here. They run right along the edge of the building. I'll bet you if somebody said, here's paper, here's pencil, draw Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, probably 2 out of 10 of you would draw in the hedge. Why? We don't see it. We do not see that hedge. It's right there in front. It's never moved. But somehow that kind of shrubbery, that kind of bush, plant, doesn't make an impression. And yet it's absolutely there. Because we are working on our sidewalk, we're working on our lawn now, converting it, getting it out of drought, getting it into drought readiness. We had to, in certain spots, try to remove a piece of the hedge. You know what? We didn't succeed. It's permanent. It's so thick and dense and gnarled and knotted and it's absolutely successful plant. And it doesn't seem to want water or need water. And I bring it up because I've encountered that living being out there. It is awesomely successful as a plant. It once you plant it, I don't even know the name. You know the name, Sally? The something bush, whatever. Yeah, it's got a Latin name. It's got for sure. And you can probably buy starters, but it's out there. And man, oh man, you can't uproot it because the roots go sideways. If you try to strip some of it out, it'll rip your hands to shreds because it's very successful, tenacious, unbeatable hedge. Barbed wire. It's like barbed wire. And what is that? That's a dense thicket. And the Buddha picks that to give us a picture of what our ideas are like. Okay, this is not individual thoughts. This is not your best thought, Oh, I had a real insight. I saw myself so clearly. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the way our knowledge interacts with our senses and the way habits tie up with emotion. And all those components go into what's called views, points of view, attitudes. If we're being friendly, what do we say? We say, oh, your perspective, right? If we're being harsh, what do we say? Your bias, your prejudice, your attachments, right? My biases, my prejudices. Okay? There are people who this is not a political comment, it's a cultural observation. The current resident of the White House, during his election 3 years ago, said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and still get elected. And everyone went, ah, the arrogance. And after watching the behavior of his followers, it's true. That's true. Could do no wrong, right? Because why? People have things they like. And another important reason for that is the power of television. And anytime you invite an individual into your Where's your TV? Into your living room, into your parlor, into your guest room, once a week for 10 years. That person becomes someone you know and trust, almost more than members of your family, right? Who you know and don't trust. But so the power of media to present an image. So whatever, that's the end of that comment. But just to say, we develop these points of view early on, and for a variety of reasons, we cling to them. How hard is it to overcome an inferiority complex? It's very hard. And what does it take to create one? Maybe just a comment from your dad, or a scolding from your mother, right? Or an encounter with a power figure, might be your brother, or your gugu or your jie, who says something harsh to you when you're at that moment vulnerable, and you take a wound. Even though it's invisible, it's like a wound in your mind. And you build from that wound. It doesn't heal, and that becomes a cholin, a dense thicket of views. How do you erase that? It's hard, isn't it? It takes a lot of uprooting. As hard as uprooting our hedge outside our window, which I guarantee you take a lot of work. You could do it. But from the Buddhist point of view, think of this. What is it at the start? It's a thought. And what's a thought? Nothing at all. Has no weight, has no color, has no flavor, has no trajectory, it doesn't have any mass. It's just a momentary flicker, but boy, if the time is right and the seed is planted, it becomes a dense thicket. Look at living beings, delusions, our wrong views, and our views constantly bind us up like dense thickets that have been there when? From time without beginning. Never cutting free. Yeah. You ever try to run through the woods with baggy pants? It's not popular. We used to wear bell bottoms. Anybody ever seen bell bottoms? We had a lot of pair. I had 3 pairs of bell bottoms. I actually had rainbow colored bell bottoms. Right? The full 9 yards. And rainbow bell bottoms. And I put them on at certain times. And you didn't wear those pants through the woods because you get stuck, get hooked. You couldn't cut free. You have to remove them, to get free. So that's what the Buddha says our bodhisattva is now what? Tuned into. The bodhisattva is a great Dharma master in training, Da Fa Shi in training. And she is now able to look at us and go, we'll work on it. We'll get that, we'll clean that dense thicket of views and delusions out. So what? So you get some freedom. Because what does the dense thicket do? It keeps us in. We build it, we make it, and we are imprisoned by it. We don't get many choices once that thicket is there. You don't get to dance left, right, back, step, front. No, you go the way it is. Another example. Anybody been driving in England in the countryside? Anybody? Not recently? When one of the things that people discover when you drive through England is something called hedgerows. Hedgerows. And the roads in rural England and Ireland as well, Scotland as well, but less in Scotland, are narrow and often dirt, not always paved. And you drive at speed down these twisting dirt roads, and on both sides you feel like you're driving through a tunnel because these hedges have grown up over the centuries and are established. They, one of the great fears in the early history of the Second World War, as the Third Reich and the Nazi Party and the Germans were blitzing across Europe, was one of the great fears was when they got to the coast of France, which is the English Channel, that they would leap across the channel and take England. And if you study military history, it's fascinating. People debate why Hitler didn't do it, because there's a lot of experts that say it wouldn't have been hard to defeat the remaining soldiers that had fled across the channel and then came back in the Normandy invasion 2 years later. Anyway, in any case, one of the things that they said was, had Hitler sent his troops across the English Channel, possibly the British hedgerows would have defeated them. Because you can't run a tank across a field with hedgerows. They're too impenetrable. They're tall bushes, maybe 5 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet hedgerows. Next time you're in England, driving, on the other side of the road, mind you, right? Take a look at the hedgerows. You'll be amazed. Who would think that these bushes could grow so tall, so far, on both sides of the road? You know, it's really a visual delight. And of course, rabbits love them, and birds love them, and weasels love them, and martins love them, and all the critters that find shelter in the hedgerows diving right into them. Humans and automobiles and tanks do not love hedgerows. You'd follow that beaten track because you can't go sideways. So that's our thoughts. Going to change your mind? Not this lifetime, right? Habits are deep and old, really are. Try one. Eat less meat. You know, and I'm not preaching and scolding. I'm talking to the increasing numbers of people in China who are meat eating is growing in China at a huge rate, and that idea that eating meat indicates wealth and well-being is a hard one to beat. That's a deep, deep choulin. That's a view, right? The idea that that meat is important. My old Chinese professor, Mr. Peng Shicheng, would tell us. Mr. Peng was a great source of knowledge of Chinese culture for us high school kids, first learning Chinese, right? And Mr. Peng would say, when he was growing up in the 60s in China, he said people were very poor, but the need to establish your dominance, being the big boss, was undiminished, even though people didn't have any money to do it. So what would they do? They would go into a restaurant, and having bought not a single dish, not eaten a bite, they would find a plate and dip their thumb in some grease, smear their lips with grease, and come out and go, "Wow, this roll 好吃啊, 很好吃啊, 肉啊, 很香啊." That meat was really good, you know. Not even having eaten a bite, but with greasy lips, showing that they, you know. So what's that? That's a view. That's an attachment, right? Change that one. That in fact, what you eat is not an indicator of your social status. And why do Chinese prefer white rice? Milling the white rice, taking all the nutrition out of it, is somehow seen as more refined and cultured. So poor people who can't afford white rice and have to eat brown rice wind up living longer with less disease than the gouty rich people who eat only white rice, you know. So that's a view, right? Change that one. It's really hard. It's really hard to do. All the rest follow. So that we are bound up with intent. They arise with thoughts. And look at this. They tie us up eternally, never ending. So how hard is it to actually change a mind? It's hard. It's hard. Indeed. This is what the Bodhisattva is learning as he or she absorbs the knowledge on the ninth stage. Okay, says the Buddha, however, 但为妄想非实物，不离于心，无处所，禅定仅非任推转，金刚道灭放毕竟。Yet these delusions and views are only false thoughts, lacking any reality. Existing only in the mind, they have no place. Dhyana Samadhi's states shut out and recede. Only the Vajra path can end the turning ultimately. Okay, another step into this knowledge. Our Bodhisattva is responding to his own challenge. He says, our views bind us up, just like the hedges, like a dense thicket. And guess what? All those ideas are all unreal. They're called Wangxiang. 非实物. They're not real. What's a Wangxiang? That's a power word that I first heard at Gold Mountain Monastery from Master Hua. A false thought. 哎，你们打那么多妄想? You know, he would say, why are you having so many false thoughts? And that we just adopted it into our English vocabulary. Oh, don't do so much false thinking. You know, I was just false thinking about lunch, or dessert. And we just absorbed that. That was a new vocabulary word. It was a false thought, false thinking. And of course the question is, what's a true thinking? If it's false, the opposite would be true. Is there any 正想, 真想, 实想? And the answer is yeah, and it's the first one. That first movement of thought, that first wave hitting the beach, is the innocent one, the accurate, the real one. What happens to those thoughts, though, is as soon as they tie in with the delusions and views and emotions and sensations, then what? Then we think about the thought we had, and then we judge the thought we had. We value or devalue the thought we had. We tie it into schemes, patterns, habits, things our friends told us, right, about that thought. And then it's Wangxiang. That's the false thought. So if we could only think the way we see, if we could think the way we hear, which is what? Once is enough. You see it once, you don't have to see it twice, 3 times, 4 times. Unless it's like a Harry Potter movie, and then you have to see it a lot, right? Or Lord of the Rings, then you have to see a lot. What's my most viewed movie? Probably The Matrix. That you have to see a bunch. So, but other sites, we just see it once. Plenty. We don't, let me review that site. Oh, I heard it, let me hear it again. We don't. Once is plenty. But somehow, the mind that the Buddha says is an organ, just like the eyes, just like the ears, we think it, rethink it, evaluate, revalue it, pretend that we didn't see it, defend against it, anticipate its return. We tie ourselves in knots around thinking. They exist only in the mind. Those thoughts have no place. Show me where your fears are. Show me where those anticipations live. Then it gives us a method. The Bodhisattva says, 禅定警戒任推转. If dhyana samadhi, if we can get to the place where the mind is gathered back, where it's integrated with the rest of the senses, then we see those thoughts for what they are. The Vajra path can end the turning once we realize Buddhahood. Then that turning ceases. Actually, people who study the dhyanas, chanting the 4 stages, 3rd dhyana, coarse Wangxiang, stop. 4th dhyana, subtle Wangxiang, stop. So if we can make it to that 4th dhyana level, which is what the Buddha was in, they say, when he realized Buddhahood. We've beaten the game. We've done what the Buddha did. So far, so good. Whew. A lot of words, a lot of information. But we're aiming for 1, 2, 3. We got 3 more stanzas to go before we hit the turning point in our verses. Can we just push ahead? Is that okay? Just chug along? All right, one more. Here we go. Yeah, question? One more time. I still didn't get it. Send me the email next week and I'll check. Is it still? Can you spell it? Is the true thought recalled? Is called. See it as it is. Mere recognition. Yes or no. As soon as I end my false thinking, I'll let you know. But I appreciate the fact that the questioner is investigating it, right? I'm not trying to be facetious. What are those terms you're giving me? I don't recognize those terms, and if they're meaningful to you, they may not mean the same thing to me. That's why it's hard translation is hard. But I'll give an example of what is difficult here. The Chinese word for self is 我相, the appearance, the image of the self. And the Buddha said that's the problem, is the self. We falsely set up a self and then plan for it, fear it's getting harmed, protect it. The self has things it wants, so there's me and then there's mine, not yours but mine. And from that is the self, the ego. You go, oh, well, what's an ego? So we grab Freud, right? Sigmund Freud. We start researching Western analytic psychology, where the ego is an important understanding of who we are inside, according to some of the early pioneers of psychiatry and psychology, right? So, in order to say this is this, you have to understand what both of them are to say they're the same. So we don't use ego for self because that's tricky. If I say this is just like the ego, that means I understand what the ego is. So our questioner has said, is it this or this? And I can't approach either one of those terms they gave me to say will satisfy you that I know what I'm talking about. How equally difficult is it to pin down what the Bodhisattva is seeing in living beings' states? Last week I made a very skillful disclaimer at the start of this list, which is what I said, I don't know what he's talking about. It's way subtler than my understanding. I brought that up front. I said, I'm sorry if you ask me to tell you about dharmas are fixed and unfixed and how the travel in the 3 vehicles I can't claim to know it. But I'm interested in it, my mind is open to it, and I want to learn more, so let's investigate it together. And if those terms satisfy you, we're in business. If you like to be lectured by somebody who knows all the answers, you're in the wrong lecture hall. I'm sorry. Or we can swap seats and you can, But this is profound, deep, nearly graduate level Dharma. And I can't say I maintain it, that I cover it, okay? So even my end of the equivalent, he's asking for equivalent. Is this? And I won't answer. That's why I say yes and no. I don't have control of either one, your terms or what the sutra's saying. So apologies, but nope. Okay, bottom paragraph. One more time. Ready? 六趣受生各差别，夜天爱润无名佛，是为种子名四压，三界无事恒相续。Rebirth happens amid 6 destinies, each one different. In the fields of karma, irrigated by love and covered by ignorance, the seeds of consciousness sprout into name and form. From time without beginning, the 3 realms continue forever. My esteemed professor, Professor Nakasone, is a scholar of the Avatamsaka Sutra. He's a Jodo Shinshu priest. He's studied and taught the Dharma his whole life. He says that the Buddha's number 1 most important contribution is the 12 links of conditioned arising. And you all know the Sanskrit name for that, Pratitya Samutpada. And the Chinese is Shi Er Yan Qi. The 12 links, we call them. It's got many different translations. Conditioned arising, conditioned co-production, things like that, right? Don't be scared by the name. This is an important topic to contemplate, if you can learn it. What are the 12? How do they work? We're studying the chapter called the 10 Stages. On the 6th stage, that was the topic. You remember how that was? There were 10 different ways the 12 links pull. And what is it? It's the Buddha's discovery of creation. How those beautiful flowers came into being. Where do they go when they die? Right? Where do you come from? That's the topic of the 12 links. And they say the Buddha saw it and explained it in a powerful, compelling way that it's so rarely explored or explained because they're 12. Anything there's 12 of, people get scared. Well, what if I get to 6 and I've already forgotten 1? You know, I can remember 3 things. You give me the 4th one and I drop it. I can juggle 3 balls. That 4th one, they all drop. You want 12, you know. So that's one. Is there's 12 things, and second, it's a little tricky to grasp, to see how it works. But when anybody takes the time to unpack the 12 links, you never see the world the same way again. Because why? The Buddha is explaining something going on inside us right this very second. And where did it come from? His meditation. People who meditate on the 12 links and really make that their focus, if they can get it, there's this incredible aha, because you see it. You see it at work. What is it? It's the answer to Genesis in the Bible. And to see the 12 links at work, it's hard to give all that to some male creator outside of you, because you see it working in me. Starts with ignorance, which means what? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I can't see. Wu Ming, no light. I look and it's dark. In the dark, you don't know. The room might be full of furniture, or it might be empty. Turn the light on, light a candle, hit the flashlight app on your phone. Oh, then you can see everything. Yo Ming, but this is Wu Ming, no light. That's the first step, Wu Ming. And the thing about the 12 links is everything that links them is called Yuan. Yuan means to link, to tie. Religary, right? Religion comes from that word, to tie together. So Wu Ming ties together with Xing, behavior. Why did you punch him in the nose? I don't know. I just didn't like the way he looked. I don't know. Why did you marry him? I don't know. It just was the thing to do, right? So many activities come out of I don't know why, but I did, right? So 12, and every time it's Yuan. It's the Buddha's description of where everything comes from. Creation, essentially. The world comes from the 12 links, says the Buddha. And then he takes it backwards. He says, if you can untie and get rid of that link, it just goes boom, 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 falls apart. And that's called liberation from suffering. You're free at that point. So Dr. Nakasone says that's the Buddha's signal. Number one, most important, discovery and legacy, that he left that behind. That's a teaching. I would say the Bodhi resolve is equally important. But anyway, so just to say, what is that? Right there, our paragraph. It's talking about the 12 links. Here is where the Bodhisattva learns about that at work in living beings, inside of us right this minute. So, rebirth and 6 destinies, hells to the heavens, everyone different. Where do they come from? The fields of karma. We're getting an analogy here. Karma is my body, my mouth, and my mind. Irrigated by love. What is that? I don't know. Right? I don't know why, but something moved. My heart went boom, boom. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Remember? That was the Pepto-Bismol. No, it was Alka-Seltzer. Remember? I think some of you, like, their smiles. You're old enough to remember the Alka-Seltzer commercial. That was a great commercial. Remember? There was a glass, and there was a super good ad. A glass of water, and then plunk, plunk, 2 tablets, fizzy. And here's this guy sitting there. He's got an empty pizza box, right? I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Plunk, plunk. Alka-Seltzer, right? Because it's like, relief is with those 2 tablets. Really good advertising. So why did you do it? I don't know. It seemed to be the thing to do at the time, you know. Alka-Seltzer, right? Oh boy, save me. So, irrigated by love, there it is right there. Covered by ignorance, we don't know why. The seeds of consciousness sprout. That's the 4th link. It's Ming Si, name and form. Arise, and we're off to the races. We've given birth. Down the road we give birth, right? From time beginning, the 3 realms, past, present, and future, desire, form, and formless, all continue. All right, so that's what that is. Somebody needs to write a good song about the 12 links. That would be a really good song, and it would have some sort of, it would definitely have a repetitive bass line that would endlessly, That's Wu Ming. That's Xing. Okay, so like that. It would go on and on and on, all the way through 12 links. That needs to be written. So this education our Bodhisattva is getting is he's looking deeper and deeper and deeper into our human mind. And also the mind of ghosts and devas as well. Okay, continuing up the top here, we got 2 more. 或业欣喜生逐去. 若立于此不复生，众生喜在三聚中，或逆于见，或行道。Diluted karma and mental habits lead to rebirths in the destinies. Once free from these, there is no more rebirth. Sentient beings all exist among the three collections, either sinking in views or practicing the way. All right, so this is kind of a general statement about the nature of us, about our nature. We got all those distinctions, all the things that do. Why is this talked about? What was the Buddha doing? What was the prince doing? The prince suddenly saw he was going to die, and he did not know that. He had been deluded by his dad, the king, to think that he was immortal, that this eternal spring went on forever in the palace. And man, the palace was mighty comfortable. Oh boy, you think about what is kind of the standard of comfort now would be a cruise, right? A cruise to, well, it used to be the Caribbean, but not since Hurricane Daniela, was it? Hit Bermuda. So Bahamas, the Bahamas has got hit. So a luxury cruise, if you're up at the top, cruise ships are stacked, different classes, and get according to what you can afford, you get on board. But there's infinite food, all the food you want, always, infinite entertainment, and the real world is back on shore. Out on the ocean, you're free. You leave it behind you for as long as the cruise lasts, and everyone around you is behaving in a gay fashion, having wonderful time, and it's pretty good. I've been told that cruise ships can be very pleasant indeed, and there's all different kinds of cruises. There are bowling club cruises where you can just bowl as many lines per day as you want, all paid for. There are knitting club cruises where world's best knitters are there, right? There are guitar cruises where you're out there in the middle of the ocean with Tommy Emmanuel and people who you've always wanted to sit next to and watch their fingers. So cruises are great examples of as close probably to heavenly deva-like life as you can afford for a brief time. And cruises come to an end, and we're back on the beach. And we think about what is the state of beings who, what other kinds of sustained pleasure could we create? And then we look at Prince Siddhartha, living in the palace in India, and multiply our cruise by about 100 magnitudes of luxury, and we still can't touch what the son of the king of India, one of the 16 kings, was like. And guess what? Suddenly he, in one day, saw he was going to die. And it shocked him so much, he went over the wall, cut off his hair, said goodbye to his horse, and set off for the forest to live a life without this trace of luxury, right? Okay, you know the story. Look at what it says here. Deluded karma, mental habits lead to rebirths in the destinies forever and forever and forever. We just keep coming back with another set of parents, coming back with another kind of diet, because we might not be in a human body. But then the second line says, once we are free from deluded karma, the 12 links, and mental habits, the dense thickets, there's no more rebirth. We have done what the prince set out to do. Look at that. That's the story. That's what it's about. And if we closed the sutra right now and just focused on that, we would have the heart of Buddhism. And it's so interesting because we've just been in China looking at our source, the source of our tradition. Master Hua, our founder, was trained and formed in the Chinese Mahayana tradition. The Tiantai teachings of Chan and Pure Land, mantra school, Vinaya school, and the Tiantai Jiaoguan, as well as the Shensho teachings. We've been to the source, the forge, the crucible, the fire, where all that training is heated and made into a form. And not a bit of it goes beyond those two lines. Deluded karma and mental habits bring us back. Can we get rid of those? We're free. That's what the prince wanted to do. And you look at these incredible monasteries in China, many of which were destroyed during the 10 years of Holocaust, but many of them were not. And we visited a bunch of them. And we walked through the halls. Oh, this is the Tang Dynasty image here. Look at that. That's been here for 1,600 years. Oh, check over here. This actually is from the Yuan Chao. This has been here since 1300. Look at that. No, this is here since, look at that. That's amazing. That's a Ming Dynasty wooden fish still in use. Bong, 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 bong. That's 500 years old, and you pound it every day, and it's been sounding like that every day for 500. And it all goes back to those two lines. And it's so easy in the structure of a church to forget where it began and get stuck in the structure, get stuck in the institution of it. And you see so many monks and nuns, I'm sure, but monks that we see who start out with fully aware that if they get the Dharma, if they can deeply enter those 12 links, they can actually have a shot of following the Buddha. But then, something about that institution just gathers them in, vacuums them up. Catholics in the Vatican, the same. No different. It's just the nature of institutions, right? So, okay, that's just a point. It's a reflection. I'm giving you my reflection. Sentient beings all exist amongst these three collections, either sinking in views or practicing the way. Let's hope we're practicing the way. One more stanza, and we're done for tonight. 住于此地，善观察，随其心悦，即根解，悉亦无碍，妙辩才，如其所应，持别说。Living on the stage, he observes thoughts, and according to their thoughts, their wishes, their faculties, and their understandings, using wonderful, unobstructed eloquence, he teaches appropriately to each one. That's the summary of all that right? You follow? Thank you for sticking with me through all those stanzas of his training. We started on page 89, right? All the things that he's been studying. She's been cramming in so that when the time comes, he or she can say, let's look at what's troubling you. I think there's a way through this. If you hang in there, we're going to find a way to solve this. Let it dissolve, right? If that's what works. Not always. Today at lunch, we had an interesting conversation about. It wasn't a conversation; it was a talk. It was one direction. Conversation is both directions. But I was hoping to provoke some thoughts about it, which is I was in the kitchen areas, washing my bowl, thinking, what am I going to say that's going to make sense to anybody? Because there's a lot of new faces in the on our Saturday group that Jin Po Shi has brought in through his repeated practice of Pure Land, the Di Zhong, the ground bell, and ding ding dong dong tok tok. It's really popular. Lots of people come just because of that. And if you said to many of those people, tell me something the Buddha taught, they would go, oh, Namo Amitofo. 6 words, right? And are they wrong? No, absolutely right. Tell me something else. Whoa, Namo Amitabha. Right? English, right? And they're right, 6 words. Pretty good, pretty good. And then there's another kind of people. If you had like most Caucasians, let's say, or most people raised in this culture, who might have been entirely Chinese, but who had no interest in Buddhism, thought it was superstitious, were completely raised on STEM and science, right? And only in their when they became mature did they get interested in Buddhism. And what do they want? Meditation. Teach me something the Buddha taught. And they go, Shikan Taza, Shiguan Dazo, sitting. Don't give me no stinking words. I don't want 6 words. You're Namo Amitabha. Who needs 6 words? That's 6 words too many. I'm free of words. Right? Are they wrong? No. That's exactly right. The Buddha taught that too. Right? To say that that's not what the Buddha taught, there are people who will say that. So, what do we have? Pure Land practice, devotion. Namo Amitabha. I want to go to the Pure Land. The Buddha is so compassionate. Look at him up there, the big one. He's so, looks like a kind father. I want to go there. There's a religious authority, male, figure that I can respond to. It doesn't look mean. So, okay, that's right. But the analytical Chan school, the insightful Chan school, they have a different Buddhism, and yet Buddhism gathers them into. Now, and I started out on the Chan side, the Zazen side. We went to Tiantaishan in Zhejiang, which is on the southeastern side of China, near the coast. Tiantai, the platform of heaven, heaven's balcony, right? Heaven's balcony, Tiantai. And we went into Guoqing Si, the feelings of the nation, the heart of the nation, Guoqing Si. And over the door, it said Sui Dai Gu Cha. It said that. Sui dynasty, the ancient temple from the Sui, that's 6th century, right? But when you went in the door, it said 4 words, which bonk made me realize something. It said Guoqing Jiang Si, the lecture monastery called Guoqing, national the sentiment, the feelings of the nation. Jiang, Jianghua, right? Jiang, Jiangjie, that Jiang. So here's a monastery that calls itself a lecture hall. And my thought was, my goodness, what did Master Hsuan call his first temple in Hong Kong? Who knows if you weren't there at lunch? Anybody know? It's called Phut Kiao Gong Tong. That's my Cantonese. Fo Jiao Jiang Tang, Buddhist lecture hall at Pao Ma Di in 31 Wang Nei Chung Road on Hong Kong Island, right? Near the racetrack, overlooking the racetrack. The lecture hall. It wasn't Dao Chang, it wasn't Si Miao, it wasn't, Jing She. It was a Jiang Tang. Okay, Shifu came to America. San Francisco, Chinatown. What was his first temple called? Phut Gao Gong Tong. I'm going to dislocate my... okay, she's laughing at me. You say it, Guojuan. What's the Cantonese? What's the right Cantonese? Say it again. Phut Gao Gong Tong. Okay. Of course, I'm exaggerating. So, yeah, Buddhist lecture hall. Isn't that interesting? And there were 5 of them. I think there were 6 before the one on Waverly Place finally struck. Okay, that's interesting. What did Master Hua name this place his last monastery? It was called Fajie Zongjiao Yanzhou Yuan, the Institute for World Religions. Zongjiao Zongjiao Yanzhou. A yuan is a institute. It's a place for study where you look into religion. That's what he called it. He did not call it Bokalai Se, which is an ugly sound. I don't like that name. People call it that, Berkeley Monastery. Well, yeah, we could have called it Bokalai Jiangtang, and it would have been better. Berkeley Lecture Hall, or East Bay Lecture Hall, or Dongwan Jiangtang. I like that one. Jinfo, what do you think? Dongwan Jiangtang. Dongwan Jiangtang. He laughed. No. Okay, no. Fajie Jiangtang. Fajie Jiangtang. We don't have Fajie Jiangtang. Dharma Realm Lecture Hall. So, not that we're going to change it. We'd have to redo our business cards, our stationery. But it would be that way because why? We, from 1995, when we began, every Saturday night of the world, we are Zhuanfaluan, inviting everybody to come, open up the texts, and see if we can make sense of what the Buddha taught. Is that Chan? You're sitting in full lotus, some of you. Is it Pure Land? We recited right up to the lecture. You're probably reciting quietly yourself right now. It's neither one, but it's both. It's another part of Buddhism that Buddhism includes. So, interesting, huh? That reflected. And that all went ding, ding, ding when I saw Guoqing Jiangsi. I'd never seen a monastery called a Jiangsi before. I'd seen Jiangtang, that's what Shifu called it, but a monastery set up to explain the teachings. I really like that. And Westerners, Caucasians, modern-minded people will come in if you say, do you you interested in what the Buddha taught? What he said? Oh, I'll give it a shot. If it's interesting, I'll stick around. If not, see you later. That's good enough. That's fair. If you say you want to come and bow to the Buddha, oh no, thanks. I read the 10 Commandments, and I don't want. I like my head right where it is. Thank you. But if you say you want to come in and investigate wisdom, want to hear about some wisdom, why the Buddha was the peace guy, kind of. What do I get? Is it something good to eat? So, yeah, pretty interesting. Then I had a bunch of thoughts about this. I also listened in to Professor Verhoeven's opening lectures on the Avatamsaka last night. He is going to be explaining chapter 9 of the Flower Garland Sutra. And I think it's a terrific choice, and I'm excited that there are 2 Avatamsaka lectures operating independently every week now. He and I will compare notes. Now I've heard his particular approach to it, and he and I I was silent for 6 years explaining the Avatamsaka while Marty, and I was translating for him twice a day in Los Angeles, in Vancouver, and then in Calgary. But What I have not heard Marty say, and I'm first chance I get, I'm going to see if I can't make the point with him, see if he'll accept the idea that these are instructions. Not every chapter, but particularly the 10 stages are instructions. This is a textbook. He kind of waffled, it's this and this and this. And what I find fascinating is my friends in Lama Zopa Rinpoche's line, the FPMT, Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, Tibetan monks and nuns deeply revere the Avatamsaka Sutra. And I've talked to some of their senior lamas, and they go, Huayan, Avatamsaka, oh, the pinnacle, highest teaching, the best. Study that text. You know. And you say, well, have you done it? Oh, well, no, I study other things. You know. People deeply revere it and respect it and all. Nobody opens it. Nobody opens the Avatamsaka. Why is that? And I think I have the answer. And I was actually, to help Marty out, I cracked open my own PhD dissertation last week. And I was reading in chapter 1 and 2, the background of what I went on to discuss. And the point that struck me then, which is 2000 to 2003 when I was writing, 20 years ago, the point that struck me then was that in China, where the Avatamsaka flourished before it moved to Korea, the men, and they were men, who propagated it were 5. Number 3 is the first one, Master Fazang, is the first one who actually left much behind in the way of writing, so we know what he thought or said. He was a massive intellectual. His thoughts, he was clearly not only a human. He had other qualities, right? He was deeply wise and virtuous, a tremendous monk. But what he wrote about the Avatamsaka became the door that everyone else walked through after that. Following him was number 4, who is the teacher which is Master Chengguan, known as National Master Clear and Cool, Qingliang Guo Shi. He's another human and a half. He was an extraordinary being, physically and spiritually, and his output was amazing. Anyway, what Master Fazang created that formed everybody's approach to the Avatamsaka was philosophical. Philosophical. What do I mean by that? You don't go to the text. You abstract out of the text phenomena and noumena interpenetrating without obstruction. Noumena and noumena interpenetrating without obstruction. Phenomena and phenomena interpenetrating without obstruction. You have the 6 kinds of immediate own being, and 6. And everyone who has touched that work goes, that's very deep. Amitofo. I think I'll go to the Vajra. I think I'll go to the Lotus. I think I'll go to the Shurangama. This is wonderful beyond words. I can't figure out what he's saying. It's beyond words, you know. So it's profoundly philosophical, and I don't mean to demean it in the least. And if I am making people, turning you away from it, I don't mean to do that. There are certain types of mind that love it. But it is densely intellectual. and categories upon categories of analysis and analysis. And from that work came the reputation. The Avatamsaka Sutra is the Mahayana tradition's highest philosophical expression. Therefore, nobody lectures it. What I saw Master Hsuan Hua do with that was the key. What did he say? He said, we love the commentaries. We respect the commentary. We revere the commentaries. During the day, we study the commentaries. When it comes time to investigate the Avatamsaka Sutra, let the Buddha's voice out. Let the Buddha's voice be heard. Set the commentaries to one side and let the Buddha's voice come forth. Open it, get your hands on it. If you must, wrinkle the paper, but turn the page, please. Read it, recite it. Excuse me. Do not be afraid of it. Take it as shoes. Take it as coat. Take it as walking stick. But open the sutra and study it and listen to it. Take it as a mirror that will show you your face, but do not be afraid of not being the intellectual equal of the sutra. You can read it, study it, learn it, enjoy it. That's what I wrote in my dissertation. Because why? I saw people everywhere doing what the Blessed Lama said was, it's wonderful, it's the peak, I never read it. Right? Nobody reads the Avatamsaka because it's too difficult, it's too lofty, too much philosophy, too much Sanskrit, all of which are not true. Those are misperceptions. I believe, and I don't mean to slander, this is not that, I believe they were created through that door of Master Fa Zhang, the third Avatamsaka patriarch, who did an incredible commentary. But the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, the Vietnamese have this thing where you go to the commentary, not the text. Okay? I hear Marty not yet out of the shadow of that. And that's why I'm saying what? I'm not saying that. I'm saying Avatamsaka Sutra, instructions for a bodhisattva. When you get to chapter 39, Sudana's pilgrimage, it's a epic literature. It's how you practice everything that came in the first 38 chapters. Right? It's the practice part of the theory that is the first 3 quarters of the sutra. In chapter 39, you get a hero who comes out and puts into practice all the instructions that we got before that. Okay, you can see I'm watching people's eyes kind of, enough, quit beating us. So, I have a different perspective on the Avatamsaka simply because I bowed to it for every word in it and recited its name for years and years and years. I don't think it's merely philosophy. It has philosophical elements. It is not merely philosophy. Right? And people hear that and they step away from it. Philosophy is boring. It's dry. It's deadly. There's no heart. There's no humans. I want something that goes bump, 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 that I can identify with. Open the Avatamsaka Sutra. Don't be afraid of it, right? It's instructions from the Buddha saying, you want to get free? Here's what I did. Follow me. Furthermore, if you do this, you can make everybody else free too. Work on it. Pick it up. Open it, at least. So, that just occurred to me. I listened to Marty's Sutra last night, and I heard in it still the somehow that I don't know. It'll be an interesting conversation. Maybe it'd be fun to have that conversation on Friday night. You know, I can come and quietly I can sit in the corner like a Chan monk, and then when it's question time, I can pull I have a question, Professor. We'll see. Okay, we started with a very interesting object, which is what? A Chinese-made guitar that was handed to me in Beijing at Guangji Monastery, quite unexpectedly. And they said, here it is, best guitar in Beijing. And I investigated it, and it's we got it back safely. It's a wonderful guitar, very nice guitar, made in Fujian. It's called a randon, which if they had asked me, I would have them change it because it sounds too much like random. What is it? I got a random guitar, but it's landun guitar. Very nice. The woods. Take a look at the workmanship. Isn't that pretty? Yeah, it sounds very nice. And the fit and the finish, the workmanship, lovely. And somebody has studied hard the best guitars available from Europe, the U.S. and Canada, Australia, and they've added traditional Chinese craftsmanship and done a great job. This is a mature instrument, and it's only going to get better as the more and more Chinese make their guitars. So can we transfer the merit, and then we'll fire up our projector. Take a look at Dunhuang. You have a song. It's on the back of your songbook. Flip it over to the back, Winston. There you go. Dedication of merit. And this is interactive. We make a wish. Places around the world are dry and need water. Australia being one of them. So if we can transfer merit to places that are water-free and places that are flooding, may that water find its medium. Okay, here we go. Our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and truth. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Yeah, very nice. Okay, may it be so. Winston, could I ask you to stand up and bring me the stack of goodies here? Jerry, you want to hit the projector? I'll be right there in a minute. But I wanted to show these first. Thank you, sir. Okay, this, if you want to see Dunhuang, you have to travel out to the Silk Road, to the Gobi Desert. The state is Gansu, and it's where travelers would come from Rome, from Persia, from Greece, Hellenistic, from India, and up over the mountains, across the desert, and they would find this oasis. And it's hard to get to then, it's hard to get to now. The things you see when you get there, things like this. And I have a bunch of wonderful books because they're strictly limiting the number of people who can go in for good reason, to preserve it. They're trying to keep a balance, because if you cut it off, nobody can go in. If you let everybody in, there won't be anything to see soon, because these are very, very fragile. It's sand and rock and wooden frames that have been smoothed over and then made like gesso, prepared for painting and then painted. And it's a combination of painting and sculpture. And what you see occasionally is, this book is a little different. What you see is a beautiful painting of the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas, and then somebody has defaced it, and you're looking at a stack of dirt, a heap of pebbles, and it's this shock because, oh, my mind is going into the Buddha and the story, and then here's this rock and sand, and you know, here's the Gobi Desert right there suddenly, and there's a line, and wow, it's really fragile. It's really fragile. So one of the wonderful things that I brought back are the staff at the Dunhuang Research Institute took the figures and the paintings and turned them into line drawings and divided it up into bodhisattvas and beings who offer. And another one of the books is Flying Devas, of which we have tried to imitate here. This is Flying Devas, Fei Tian, and musicians and dancers. This is a wonderful one. And this one is the Buddha's stories, all of which appear. These are extracted, the colors have been removed from the walls. Now, stand up and, Jerry, you want to hit the screen? What is Dunhuang? Dunhuang is 500 caves. That historically people of means among the travelers coming either heading for Rome or coming to Chang'an, the first major capital city of the Silk Road, wealthy people would hire artists to make Buddhist art for their merit, because it was good for you. It'd bring you good luck, it'd bring you blessings if you had an artist on your behalf draw something wonderful or create sculpture, right? So it was merit making. Jinchuan, could you get these lights before you go? Okay. So that's what the Dunhuang caves are, and that process happened for 1,000 years. Now, this what you have here are the photos from our delegation as we traveled there. These photos are all the outside. So I'm not going to tease you with them. There's the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert is there. The town of Dunhuang, then like now, or now like then, is an oasis. It's a little island of green in burned out sand. Okay? Now, I looked online and discovered that the sands are coming in to Dunhuang, and they say if things don't change in 50 years, it'll be covered again. Yeah, the desert is happening again. Yep. It's a town. It's a city. And the population has doubled in the last 30 years. It's a hard scrabble city because it's super cold in the winter. Nobody else comes. And in the summer, it's a tourist town. But the Chinese have done a really nice job of saying, middle way, we'll let 6,000 people a day come in and look at the art, but no more than that, because that would destroy the images if more people came. These, we're looking at Heng Jie Fashi's photos. She, one of the nuns who went with us, good photographer. Dancing clouds. So the town is, you have to go travel like 20 minutes by bus to go from the town of Dunhuang out to the caves. Here are the caves. So you're driving along and you see this mountain range, right? That's the desert. Oh, there's something there. What's that? It's, oh, look, holes in the rock, right? Well, yes, there are 500 art caves where travelers on the Silk Road, this is the bridge from the parking lot to the art caves, are all behind these trees. Travelers on the Silk Road for 1,000 years brought artists, paid them to create incredible art on their behalf. So, on one hand, what is Dunhuang? It's a museum. They were dug. They were not there before. They were dug out by, and they're shallow. This is, our Buddha Hall is pretty much the size of the biggest of the caves. Just this big. And there are 500 of them. And the Mo Gao is the name of this particular, the famous ones. There are 5 or 6 other sites where you could find Buddha images. We didn't go to other sites. If we'd stayed more time, we would have gone to more caves. But they're all in this stretch, right? Okay. Look at the desert right behind. That's the Gobi Desert. Master Xuanzang, with one old, skinny red horse, traveled this all the way to India on foot. Think about that. Okay, ready. Here we go. Yes. Okay. What they did, so we lined up with our group. There were about 300 or 400 people with us. China, think large groups, large numbers of people, all of whom paid to see. The first thing they did to everybody was show us 2 movies. You couldn't get to the caves without seeing 2 films. And the films were really well done, historical, not propaganda at all. They were giving you a flavor of what it was like. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, there was an exhibit at the Getty Museum in LA, right? Everybody knows the Getty, really incredible art museum. Turns out that the Getty Museum, a rich oil man who did something good with his oil money, the Getty Museum has supported the internal Chinese Dunhuang Research Institute, particularly a woman named Fan, who has been the guiding light for this work, protecting, recovering, cataloging the art treasures. Getty Museum has been supporting them for 20 years, and so they created an exhibit that came only to the Getty Museum. It was there for 9 months, 2 or 3 years ago. Heng Lai took me there, said, we should go. You're going with me. We're going. Okay, I'm going. We went the last week of it. I'm sure glad we did. Here is a 6-minute video reporting on that exhibit. And like I say, you can't get in with your camera or your phone to see what's inside the caves. This is the best way to do it. So I brought this to show you 6 minutes worth.
One of the most famous art museums in the U.S. has recreated one of China's most important heritage places, the cave temples of Dunhuang. They were once a popular rest stop, marketplace, and religious shrine along the fabled Silk Road. But today, more than 1,700 kilometers away from Beijing, they're not the easiest place to visit. So now an international effort is underway to bring the caves to museum goers. I recently got a chance to see the wonders of the Dunhuang Caves right here in Los Angeles. In the northwestern province of Gansu, China, lies the Dunhuang Oasis, once a strategic point along the Silk Road and home to the spectacular Mogao Cave temples. Nearly 500 grottos feature stunning Buddhist art from the 4th to the 14th century. 45,000 square meters of murals depicting historic, cultural, and religious experiences line the caves, and more than 2,000 painted sculptures hold court. For most people, visiting this remote UNESCO World Heritage Site isn't likely, but thanks to a long-term project between China's Dunhuang Academy and the Getty Conservation Institute, or GCI, full-scale hand-painted replicas of 3 Mogao caves are now at the Getty Center in Los Angeles for a special exhibit.
Well, the Getty Conservation Institute works around the world to improve the practice of art conservation, and we always do that in partnership. So in this particular case with the Cave Temples exhibition, we're doing that with the Dunhuang Academy, and we've been working with them for more than 25 years, as you know.
There's 2 figures that are facing each other with round shields.
Neville Agnew of GCI has worked on the Mogao Conservation Project for 28 years. He's familiar with every hand-painted inch of every cave and all the colorful stories.
Well, they brought to justice and they blinded. The eyes are put out. And then they're turned loose in the forest. But they appealed to Guanyin, the Bodhisattva of mercy, here. And Guanyin tells them to lead pure lives and restores their eyesight to them.
2 of the 3 Getty Caves were built using the same original methods from centuries ago, from the ground up down to the tiniest brushstroke, by a team of artisans who came to Los Angeles from China's Dunhuang Academy specifically to help create the exhibition.
They rebuilt 3 caves in LA.
Historically, replication was a traditional part of Buddhist practice and a way of earning karmic merit. And opposed to Western attitudes, copying in China was a way to master Chinese painting. Professor Heng Sure of Dunhuang Academy has been working to restore and preserve the Mogao grottos since 1963.
这个因为你预计不到他会碰到什么困难，你要画得很粗，别人不知道，我们一看就那你就没有画到位，所以他要非常细的去，他的首先他弄明白，他才能画。
Another part of the extensive Dunhuang exhibit uses modern technology to bring history to life. The virtual immersive exhibit includes panoramic projections and 3D stereoscopic technology. Cave 45, an ornately decorated cave with a 7-figure sculpture group, is featured in the 3D film. Since the Getty Conservation Institute began working with Dunhuang Academy in 1989, the focus has been twofold. First, on research and site stabilization, and then conservation techniques to help prevent further deterioration of the ancient site.
That's what I was describing. There's art and there's
Not only has GCI provided assistance in Dunhuang, but the techniques developed for the project are now benefiting crucial conservation efforts around the world.
We've taken some of that knowledge and now we're applying it to work we're doing in Egypt at King Tut's tomb. So what we try to do with what we accomplish in one place is to share that knowledge and share that understanding in many, many places.
An example of how international cooperation for good can truly make a beautiful and lasting impact around the world. For Full Frame, this is Mei Li in Los Angeles.
Isn't that incredible? So that's a video, again, of one thing that you have to do in order to see Dunhuang, is you have to look at other medium, like a video of people who've gone in because they won't let you in, trying to preserve it. Here's some. Let's see here. This is from my camera. This is the main gate, the traditional main gate, Mo Gao Ku, it says. And here, what I tried to capture was everybody lined up waiting for the doors to open. You get a sense of China scale here. So this is what it's like at Dunhuang. Now, some people say, well, what's the big deal? Why bother? You know, it's because face to face. I was standing, those Buddhas you saw, you know, little kind of like ground cover Buddhas. They're just the wallpaper. When they're 2 inches from your shoulder and you're looking at them in the cave, and you think, what kind of devotion created these? Where did the knowledge come from, and what happened to it? How come these caves were buried for 500 years? They were rediscovered in 1905 by accident. From 500 years, from the fall of the Ming on, nobody knew. No one lived at Dunhuang. There was no one there. And they could have just simply been buried to this day. But through an amazing series of coincidences, an old Taoist guy he lived there and he'd heard stories and he poked around and he's gonna knock, you know, and like here it's solid, but down here it's that kind of stuff. He's like, oh, that's hollow. And he poked a stick in and opened it up, and here was a library room full of sutras and scrolls, and a discovery of a lifetime. He took them to the local government, and they said, get your junk out of here. We don't care about this crap. They said they didn't want it at all. He said, oh my, I think it's important, he said. And whoever was the local at the time, you know, he had other things on his mind, bandits and invasions and things. And they said, take this crap out of here. We don't care. And he said, you really don't want it? No, we don't want it. Well, what if I sold it? Who cares? Sell it. So he sold it. And it went to England, and it went to France, and it went to Italy, and it went to Germany, it went to the U.S. And to say a lot of it's come back, these are, mind you, these are sutras, and some art pieces too. Not all of it has come back, but at least they've indexed it. They know what is where, what was originally there. So anyway, the amazing events that led to this discovery of these caves and their recreation, right? Once again, opening them up. What I will show you just really quickly is something that we did get close to, and I'm just going to run through it. We're out of Dunhuang at the moment into Hangzhou, and it's early in the morning. The sun is rising, barely, and I was here with Jinwei Shi, and we walked down through the temple. This is Lingyan Si, right? Talk about a Chinese monastery from your best dreams, right? Look at that. We walked down to this place called Feilai Peak, which again is 1,000 years of creation through the gate, right across the street, and saw this kind of sculpture, Buddhist art. This is not in caves. Part of it is, but it's outdoors. Dynasties of artists have worked on these rocks, which apparently are just the right material and the right consistency to create amazing, unforgettable images. And mind you, they have been, many of them have been defaced and destroyed over the course of time, but not all of them. And there we go. You definitely get a feeling of something magical and holy and sacred. So I've skipped out of Dunhuang without even showing you Dunhuang. And like I said, I don't mean to tease you. It's just that you can't take your camera inside. But here, you can stand right up face to face with these living images that have been there for 900, 1,000, 1,200, 1,300, 1,600 years. And they're astonishing, right? Imagine if that was in your backyard. It's the equivalent of going over onto the playground, crossing McKinley Avenue to the playground and finding this, right? Here's the Avatamsaka Trinity. Yeah, quite wonderful. For this reason, Lingyan Monastery is China's third most popular tourist destination. Number 1, Great Wall. Number 2, Forbidden Palace, Forbidden City. Number 3, Lingyan Monastery and Feilai Feng, the peak that flew here. This is my best photo, is dawn coming in through the dawn breaking to the horizon with the Buddha sitting in samadhi, right? Okay, so there we are. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you, and I know that's brief and you can't really say you saw much, but I hope that people will be what's the word? Inspired? Sparked? Light a spark in people's awareness of, where's the remote? So that you'll want to look further. And the Cultural Revolution couldn't wipe it out. Nasty emperors who didn't like Buddhism couldn't wipe it out. The rain and the sun couldn't wipe it out. Somehow what was created by these Buddhist artists in China probably will outlast humanity. And what will we leave? Is there going to be some sort of an American Buddhist art? I'm not a visual artist. I like music, but maybe with seeing this can encourage people to get out your stone chisel and get to work. We got Rocky Mountains. We got Sierras. Why not? Go for it. Okay. Kai. We did not. No. There were no monks there at all. We were the only monks. No. But we had. I know you snuck your camera in there, and you didn't win any popularity contest by taking your camera in there, Kai. we had a really good guide who she was very knowledgeable, and yeah. Anyway, Dunhuang is there. You fly into Beijing, take a flight into Lanzhou, and then to Dunhuang. Yes, Paul.
Master, yes, because you've been to the Guangji temple.
Guangji Si.
Yeah, Guangji Si, yeah. Because I was there. I was shocked. I was just because of talking about this image, the
Wanshu Pusa.
statue. Why? First time I went to that temple, I was just so powerful.
Yeah.
I just want the sitting there, it's so different. Because that's not the Guangji temple is near the Forbidden Sea.
Yes.
Near the temple.
Not far.
All the stuff inside is the best of best, because that's temple reserved for I think it's the emperor. So because we know a lot of pictures, so I heard you took some pictures. So if you can show us.
We will.
That's
We actually Guangji Monastery in Beijing is where the Fojia Xiehui, that's the Buddhist Association, is. Also our friend Yanjue Daheshang, who was here in March, and then who we visited just in Beijing. He was there, and he greeted us and took us to every single image, all of the treasures, and we took a bunch of pictures. They're all behind glass, But even what wins is Tang Dynasty is the oldest, right? If you have Tang Chao de Dongxi, you've got oldest stuff. And their number one Tang Dynasty is 2 wooden pillars in the main Buddha hall, Da Sheng Bao Dian. And they have Sudana's 52 visits all carved in. And then they have the base of the pillar, 那个大柱底，那个基础基，那个大柱的基 is a Tang Dynasty ji. And they say that's the oldest thing in the temple, And then the trees are really old too, 1,000-year-old trees. But the thing is, everything in Guangji Si is old. The bell, that's a Qing Dynasty bell, and it's been ringing for 400 years, and everything is like that. They're bao. This is a guobao. This is a guobao. This is a guobao.
Also the Guanyin Bodhisattva, they have 3 dynasties.
Side by side, yeah. That 1,000-hand Guanyin that looks like it's bleeding. Every joint has water in it, and it's like that was right, Jinchuan. That was the one that everybody pretty much went, "Oh my God," And we do have them, but we have several thousand images. So I have, But yes, we'll get to them. Okay, thank you all. See you next week, same time, same place. We'll continue. So we transfer and bow to the Buddha. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Now, just to make it real, I will say, the monks who were taking us around and saying, here's this Song Dynasty piece, when they saw 3 Ming Dynasty Buddhas, they went, whoa. Namo Da Fang Fang.